Hey there, it's time for the show, the Tatiana Show, where you make friends and talk life and crypto. It's 2021, bitches! All right, I'm not supposed to curse, but I'm gonna do it because we are in a crazy time right now. 2020 was basically morphing into all of our worst nightmares, and 2021 seems on track to deliver just as much scary stuff, if not more. And one of the central focal points of this new world order, if you will, not even in like big sense, but just like this new way of organization is getting people to wear masks. And masks are not that simple. We're going to learn exactly what the deal is behind the masks, why they may be opposed by some people, why you may like a mask. And if you've been wondering why your friends are so evil and heartless and they don't care about you and they don't care about killing grandma, well, you're going to learn that maybe there's a different perspective. And we're going to try and have this conversation, guys, without making fun of the maskies. I probably did not set the tone by calling them maskies, so I apologize out of the gate. I'm putting a penny in the swear jar. But I'm pumped for this because I talk about it a lot, and I know that you have put a lot of effort into cultivating this book and making good arguments. But before we start talking about our subjugation through a piece of cloth, I have to say hello to my wonderful co-host, Josh from Voltoro. What's going on, buddy?
Tatiana, we're all living in this strange time where nothing seems to make sense. Up is down, down is up. Left is right, right is left. But I think we're managing to handle it, and I think shows like this are important because we have great guests like the following.
Indeed, we do. Yeah. So Allan Stevo, we've known each other for a long time. We've been in the crypto space for a while. Give us a little bit of background and tell us all about your fight against the masks.
Yeah, background in crypto specifically. Helped co-found the New York Bitcoin Center in 2013, and that appears in Netflix documentaries and in quite a bit of other media. It was an exciting time. You could walk in with cash, walk out with Bitcoin. We'd have 1,000 people through the door some days. It was really a fantastic, exciting place. I've been involved.
Sorry, I just got to pause there because that's a really poignant time in my life too, when I was stuck in Australia and I was thinking, man, look, the Americans, they can like buy Bitcoin at Walmart through Charlie Shrem's deal. They've got the Bitcoin Center right in Wall Street. I love how vivacious that was. How just in your face, right next to Wall Street, just put it up there. It was fantastic. Well done, guys. Like really, like Allan, that's just amazing.
Thank you. We used to have we would go right outside the New York Stock Exchange too. We'd step outside our exchange outside our building, and we would trade on the street sometimes at lunch, and there'd be traders inside, and the pits were dead at the New York Stock Exchange, and the traders would come outside, and we might have 20, 30, 40 people who were on the street milling around, some of them trading Bitcoin, and it was exciting. So
yeah, I remember you guys did the the first sort of real back to the chalkboard style trading, and the bank, someone standing on the bank calling prices, right?
That was me often. I used to work at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and I also worked at the Chicago Board of Trade on the floor in both. And that's part of how the Bitcoin exchange ended up that way. The New York Bitcoin Center ended up that way. I've been involved in liberty causes for at least 15 years. When 2020, the Ides of March 2020 came along and this weird Corona communism got implemented on us, I had people writing me. I write at a website called LouRockwell.com quite a bit. I had people writing me saying, hey, what do we do about these face masks? The rest of this stuff I can manage, but the face mask, what do we do? So I wasn't wearing a face mask. A lot of other people writing me weren't wearing face masks. We just kind of through, 500 people or so, we kind of worked our way through it step by step. What works in this situation? What works? What doesn't work in another situation? So it ended up in a book, Face Masks in One Lesson, that I wrote. And it's really meant to be a way to just kind of to say to someone who says, I don't want to wear a face mask anymore, it lays out, legitimately, how can you never wear a face mask again? It takes you 10, 15 minutes to read the beginning, the lesson. And then if you want, if you're a slow learner like me, the rest of it is this in-depth analysis of at the grocery store, what do you do? At school, at work, jury duty, on an airplane. How do you make sure you're never wearing a face mask again? Real in-depth, but 10, 15 minutes, you can get most of what you need out of it.
But wait a second. Why are you so evil? Seriously, some people are going to be watching this and they're going to say, this guy and his friends are so selfish. These libertarians, they only care about themselves. Obviously, it's polite. Obviously, it's, the right thing to do if you care about other people. So what gives? Why are you such a horrible person?
I like that question, Tatiana. I start the book actually with what is the best study from 2020, in my opinion. It's a study from the CDC, actually, not from the CDC, from a CDC journal. It's a CDC peer-reviewed journal of epidemiology called Emerging Infectious Disease. And the study is by a team, lead author Xiao, XIAO. May 2020, that's a few weeks after the April 3rd CDC face mask mandate. And her and her team lay out COVID's pretty important. We have to figure out what to do that is not superstitious. We have to figure out what to do that is the most effective approaches. What are the most effective approaches possible? And they say face masks, they're not going to work against any respiratory virus. Don't delude yourself into thinking they do. Then she goes further and says things like disinfecting surfaces isn't going to work against COVID. It'll work against all kinds of other things. Washing your hands isn't going to work against COVID. It's going to work against all kinds of other things like intestinal problems, intestinal illnesses. But COVID-19, don't obsess about that. Obsess about more important things. And there's lots of things we can obsess about. If we're worried about protecting grandma, if we're worried about preventing the spread of disease, we would be obsessing about things like we had the Grand Princess, the cruise ship where we were able to observe 700 or so people with COVID and to say, wait, what happened in this situation that didn't happen in other situations? That was in February 2020. We already had kind of a cool way of seeing what's going on. And it's things like obesity. Obesity is a big deal. So I lost a little bit of weight this year. I was concerned about it. I said, I'm going to lose a little weight. I'm going to keep a little healthier. I'm going to really do things that protect society rather than the stupid face mask. And Zhao goes even further and says things like if you're wearing a face mask improperly, it may even increase the spread. Face mask may not just be neutral. It may be harmful to others. And the proper protocol, she cites World Health Organization 2009 circular. Tell me if you guys have ever seen anyone following these rules. I bet you have not seen even one person following these rules. What she says to make a face mask at least neutral is it must be put on sterile. It must be sterile when you put it on. Single-use only face masks are really meant to be single-use only, or else they're not going to work. Your hands must be sterile when you put on the face mask. You must not touch your nose or mouth while wearing a face mask. If the face mask gets moist, you must change it out immediately. So I'll see people on the street who might say to me, why aren't you wearing a face mask? And if I see them touch their face mask, I'll say, excuse me, when are you going to change that face mask? And it immediately flips the conversation. I love grandma. That's why I lost a little bit of weight. That's why I make sure I'm exercising outside, getting sunlight and vitamins. That's why I don't eat too much sugar, which suppresses the immune system. And I do a bunch of other stuff that's good for you. And I wish the people who are in public health and say they love us, and our governors who say they love us, would point to some of the harder things to do rather than the superstitious face mask, which does nothing.
See, when I was growing up, I'm 6'7". I'm a giant. I belong to the Giants.
Great genes.
And yeah, but I got really tired when I was young of people saying, "Gee, you're tall. Gee, you're tall." I just used to get really mad, And eventually I realized I can't get mad at every single person on earth. Otherwise, I'll just be walking around like a mad, angry person. And I feel like it's the
A
same.
very tall one.
Yeah,
Like a
very
tall, angry giant.
Angry giant. I like to be a friendly giant. But it seems to me like it's the same with COVID. I feel like I can't be bothered explaining to every single person that looks at me like, yeah, you can't wear a mask. Like, oh, well, there's a study and here's the studies. And I guess this is where your book comes in of how to easily dismantle these people or without too much bother. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Not dismantle. I think that was how to diffuse these sort of angry people that come up to you and say, "Oh, why are you wearing a face mask?" Because I had to literally break up a fight the other day between two older gentlemen in a supermarket. One fully gloved up and everything under the sun on, and then one person without the mask because he'd just been on the phone. And the guy's like, "Why you put on your mask?" in a full like German angry voice, which is terrifying.
No, this is how they break down society, though, right? Like all of a sudden, everybody's just allowed to start yelling at each other in society, and they have this sense of righteousness around that. How do you break? I mean, yeah, you can do your but I mean, how can you break through that longer term?
Yeah, this what Josh said about getting involved in that. Josh, I really want to commend you. There was a German pastor. I don't know how to say his name in German. It looks like Niemöller in English. Martin Niemöller. He went around. He spent his years after World War II saying, "Hey, I waited for other people to get involved and protect me, and that didn't go right." And people might not know his name, but everyone knows his poem that he went around. He spoke to many audiences worldwide about this over and over again. He'd use his poem. First, they came for the socialists, right? Everyone knows this poem. But what you did is the exact opposite. You created, I like to call it a Niemöllerian buffer. You created a buffer around yourself by protecting someone else. You were standing up for this guy, perhaps, or at least getting involved in stopping any kind of altercation because that guy wasn't wearing a mask. Big deal. Tatiana brought up the righteousness of it. You were the righteous one in that situation, if you ask me. And a thing I kind of telling anyone the story, if you storm Omaha Beach, you're going to protect your freedoms. I'm not telling anyone the story. If you spend your Christmas in a fetid French trench, you're going to protect your freedoms. I'm not saying anything like that. But if you can figure out how to not wear a face mask and you can do it calmly with others, you're protecting your freedoms. And one thing I recommend, for example, is to never have that standoff in the at the compliance checkpoint if it can be avoided. So that might mean before you go shopping, 3 minutes on the phone with a manager saying, "Hey, I'm unable to wear a face mask safely. I'd like to come by about 2 p.m. What can you guys do for me?" And to just start the conversation there, let the manager talk, and to be as rational as possible, as calm as possible, just like things used to be, just like humans used to interact. Before, as Tatiana said, there was this attempt to divide us. But that's very useful if you can kind of take it away from the compliance checkpoint. And Tatiana, I think to answer that.
Isn't that a lot of effort, though? I mean, does that mean that once you've established this relationship with them, then every single time you can just go to that store? I mean, because that seems a little bit impractical, but I guess if you're just going to the same grocery store all the time, especially if you're trying to support a local business, which is what I'm trying to do. I mean, I don't know, like it's weird because they make the business owner the police officer for the state. And why should you have such an antagonistic relationship with somebody you're just trying to get your cookies, or like whatever it is that you're trying to buy at their store. So yeah, I don't know. It's like weird to have that interaction.
We got to move it away from antagonism as much as possible. And we can do this. And we've been modernity kind of encourages us to look at each other as, what can I get from this person? What is this transaction? To look at each other as, gumball machines or ATM machines effectively, except humans are even less predictable than a gumball machine or an ATM machine. So modernity encourages us to look at each other in these transactional ways. And what I'm encouraging is to have a human conversation with someone. It is a little impractical at first, but when I'm going somewhere else and having that first conversation, it's a little annoying. After the places I go shopping regularly, the conversation just had to happen once or twice. And then a quick follow-up once in a while. If you save the manager's name, I keep the names of managers for stores in as safe a place as as I keep my most important passwords, my most important keys to my most important doors. I know that that's a key to a door. If there's any conflict ever, all I can say is, oh, well, Tatiana mentioned this to me. And then the person says, oh, this guy knows Tatiana. Okay. Travis mentioned this to me. Oh, it immediately diffuses the situation.
So let's take it back a notch, I think, because a lot of people will be saying, well, yeah, but what then you're sitting around, you're spreading this virus. What is the best way to protect yourself from this this craziness?
Yeah, from the virus itself.
Yeah. Like if people are legitimately worried about getting sick, you know, it's the first thing that pops in your head. Well, you think like, oh, logically, well, if I cover mine, I'm breathing, it's from the breath, then that's sort of, you know, sort of stopping it. And then someone else wears a mask to start double stopping it. You see all these images or these shows like to, you know, put a black light on and see all this, you know, vaporize, these people sucking on a vaporizer, seeing where it all comes out. And that makes sense to them. So why doesn't that make sense? Why isn't it very helpful to wear a mask? In terms of apart from, you know, you're touching your face and it's actually more dangerous. But what do people do to stop getting the virus if they're not wearing a mask? And B, why are masks not that helpful in your opinion?
So you point to, this is really important what you just pointed out, Josh. There's two kinds of studies out there. I can mostly separate them into two kinds of studies. There's mechanistic studies, which are what you just described, Josh, where it's this particle is this size, or someone smokes and the dust comes, the smoke comes out. This kind of thing that says, in theory, masks have these limitations, masks have these capabilities. And then there's these controlled randomized trials with laboratory confirmed results where you can say, in reality, when we test this amount of people at the end of this period of time, this group wore masks, this group didn't, we see this amount of difference in between these two groups. So these are two kinds of ways of kind of assessing the situation. And just like any other field, there's theory and there's reality. And there's nothing controversial about that. For whatever reason, unlike the two of you, there's lots of voices in the media that are encouraging the theoretical study, saying, hey, we really got to pay attention to this theoretical study, it's telling the truth. Then they're ignoring the more reality-based study. And if I were to be maybe a little cynical about it, they're probably focusing on those mechanistic studies because it follows the narrative that they need to push upon people. But an easy thing to say, there's nothing controversial about this. To say, hey, there's these mechanistic studies out there. You're going to come across them, and there's also these randomized controlled trials out there with laboratory confirmed results. You're going to come across them, and in theory, this happens. In reality, it doesn't actually work. We can get information from both, and we can figure out what at the end of the day works. And from what we know right now, these masks do not work to stop the spread of respiratory viruses. What does work, we've known for a long time, things, each of us individually have our own things that work. When we're starting to get sick, we do certain things. But if someone's looking at a mask as the save-all solution for society, this is very, very American, very westernized right now to say, what is the easiest, simplest, most hassle-free thing I can do? And then that must be the salvation for me, if that is it. But that's not it. This 10-cent polypropylene mask from Wuhan province is not it. But questions that we could be asking ourselves easily, are you getting 8 hours of sleep? If you're not getting 8 hours of sleep, that's probably a lot more important than taking the mask.
Yeah.
Your body in good shape.
Yeah, it's hard to sleep these days.
And eating well. I mean, these are very simple things. We live in an age of plenty. A lot of people eat a whole bunch of sugar. Sugar is so bad for the immune system. You should probably, if you really are worried about COVID, you should say to yourself, I am not going to eat a teaspoonful of sugar in anything, not hidden in bread, not sprinkled atop my toast in the morning with butter, no honey, nothing like that. If you're really concerned about COVID, you should be saying, no more sugar until COVID is gone. That's the real thing you should be doing. But people won't make that sacrifice. People want to make the sacrifice.
Oh yeah, no fast food.
I'm going to wear the mask. I'm going to yell at everyone else.
Yeah, yeah. And you do. You get really angry people. I mean, even one of my coworkers, I didn't know how to break it to her because she's just furious when she gets on the train and there's one person without a mask on the train. She's like, Josh, and I was just so angry. And I'm like, it's just a mask. Just calm down. Don't even worry. But you can't. I just don't know really, because it's so intense, because it all comes back to killing old people, and it's like, hey, why is it that everyone's so passionate? Is because they don't want to hurt old people yet. The old folks' homes, I mean, I don't know the last time you guys had a look at them. It's a pretty rough and ready place. The food's not that nice. It's not like we're really caring for the old in this society, and haven't for a long time. We should be putting a lot more into that side of society, of actually looking after the elderly, and not just putting them in an old folks' home that's really badly run and financed.
Yeah, but they want their hate. You know what I mean? People are not really. I mean, we live in a time where people are very disconnected, right? They're looking at their phone. They're getting, I want a snack. I want to do this. I want to do that. And they're just like, rah, just constantly consuming things. With this, everybody's so stifled. They don't know how to communicate. I'm feeling really scared about what's going to happen in the future. Instead, they say, you bastard, you're not wearing a mask. And then, frankly, I feel like when I see the people wearing masks, you guys are going to get us all killed with your compliance. So it's really hard to be like, I feel like it's a little bit of almost like a Buddhist practice where you have to be like, I will forgive you your mask trespasses and not mask against us. You know what I mean? Like, how do you get yourself to get through that part of it? I like that you're doing practical things.
Yeah.
But how do you not rage out at people? Because let's face it, we all like to say, oh, I'm so nice. I'm never rude to anyone. Liars, So how do we do that on like a consistent basis? Because I can manage being polite in little small chunks. And I try to be polite. But, it doesn't always happen if you have to freaking deal with a freaking pandemic for a year and just looking at people and wondering why you're in this horror movie. So what do you suggest for us to not kill our fellow man?
Hey, I don't discourage you raging out on people. I don't discourage you expressing yourself. People who you think are doing wrong are probably benefited by you letting them know, hey, I think you're messing up right now, because I can tell you're hearing it 24/7 from culture and from media bombarding you with how badly you guys are messing up if you don't wear a mask. And there's nothing wrong with being the counter narrative. I'd like to encourage that you try to be as effective as possible when you're having those conversations. And people were writing me very early in the 2-week lockdowns. They were writing me, I went to the grocery store. I yelled and yelled and yelled and yelled, and they sent me away. What gives? And what gives is you don't want to end up in that situation at a checkpoint yelling. If you need to get to the other side of that checkpoint, there's a different approach that works, and that it works 95% of the time, no questions asked. That conversation with the manager, knowing the policy of the store. Many of them are in writing. Many of them have exemptions in them that are very clearly stated. The manager may never even looked at those exemptions. Knowing the local exemptions, often they have very clearly stated. The local orders are often very clearly stated with exemptions. And in Michigan, for example, all you need to do is say, I can't wear a mask safely. And they're not supposed to ask you anything else. In Sonoma County, California, for example, there's rules that say if a person has difficulty breathing in a mask, they're exempt. This is many people legitimately don't have to wear these things. So, Tatiana, this question, what do you do if you need to yell at someone, if you need to let off steam? Just recognize you're letting off steam right now, and you might hurt some feelings.
I don't want to do that.
If you need to do it, do it. I want to encourage people, if they really feel they need to do it, but please do it very judiciously. And it's not going to work it's probably going to make people more against your opinion. If you can let off a little steam in a more calm conversation and let a person know what you're thinking in a more calm conversation, that probably goes a lot further. But just to realize,
if I try to access like my higher self, I try and think, I walk around the lake a lot and I see people outside with masks on, and I can't even look at them. I'm like, what's wrong with you guys? I mean, we're not even on the inside. I'm 100 feet away from you. You're going to be okay. Also, what happened to 6 feet? Does that not count outside? Just goes jumping like miles away, like, just lurking underneath the park bench, waiting for you to sit down. I mean, the whole thing is really frustrating. And I want to look at them and say, you don't have to be afraid. That's one part of the range of feelings.
Why
feel,
don't they have to be afraid?
Because they don't need to wear a mask outside. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life. Like, I don't understand why people think, okay, inside, fine. You're in the restaurant. You're going to put it on when you go to the bathroom. Idiotic as hell. But okay, maybe there's some kind of grain of understanding that. But why outside?
So weird.
In the heat, in the cold, in the snow, in the rain.
Driving by yourself.
There's
Driving by yourself.
But if they're smoking a cigarette, COVID stays away.
Oh, there's another one. That smoking puts you at a higher risk of COVID, it looks like. That's not getting talked about.
I'm so surprised to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I have noticed is that there's definitely no terrorism anymore since COVID. It just seems to have gone.
Oh, no, now there's domestic terrorism, Josh, please.
I don't know, terrorists are all gone from the media. Yeah, well, there's domestic terrorism now. I guess that's starting to pipe up.
Yeah, it's not even cool anymore. I mean, this is like our 9/11 to me. And I think that's why there's just this really big disconnect where people just think that you're really selfish. And one of the things that we talked about, which number one, we got a lot of mixed input from the government at the beginning. But, Fauci, of course, did a little bit of a flipping and a flopping on the masks. But apparently, from what I understand, he wrote a very extensive paper or essay or thesis on a study he did of masks during the 1918 pandemic, and stating that most of the people died from bacterial pneumonia that they got from the masks themselves. Why is that? Is that true? And if that's true, then why isn't everybody saying, hey, what's up with that? I mean, is it just a matter of memory holding it? Is it that no journalist will actually ask him that question? What is why is there such a disconnect with what he was saying before and now? Other than he's an evil bastard, which I think might be one of the options.
I've seen that information too, but I haven't gone and tracked down that study, and it's on my to-do list. I'm really eager to read that study. And even if
me too, right?
It's not that damning. Even who knows? Even if the study doesn't exist, it's Tatiana. You bring a great point up here about why aren't we even asking? The Zhao study I just mentioned, that I start the book with, the Zhao study. It's out of its scope to say Tatiana not wearing a mask harms Tatiana how, right? We're not even, barely are we asking this question, which is so important. So we're saying, what does the mask do to the stop of the spread? We're saying, what does lockdown do to the stop of the spread? We're not asking, what does lockdown do to the rest of society? What are the disadvantages of it? How do we weigh it reasonably against the benefit of stopping the spread versus the immense amount of people that have been that will die because of things like unemployment, or that will die because of things like being stuck with the same people inside for forever. We're not asking these questions. This thing about the mask, we're not asking, what does it do to Tatiana psychologically to wear a mask? What does it do to Tatiana's bond with other people? What does it do to the inside of Tatiana? How does it harm children to never see someone's expressions? How do we stop communicating? Because we all read lips. A woman with an autistic child recently wrote me saying, my son is having the hardest time communicating because he needs to read lips to communicate. And then a paragraph down, she says, but we don't realize we all read lips to communicate. I never thought of it before. That's absolutely true. We're not asking the question, how does it impact the wearer? And this is a fundamental problem that you guys have brought up. Both of you have brought it up just now. saying how society wants to impose upon you the responsibility and saying your health decisions harm another person. This is just another way that the same kind of mindset is creeping in on us, trying to say outsiders are allowed to determine your life, not yourself. And this is the difference between medicine and public health. These two are polar opposites, polar opposites. Medicine has a 2,500-year-old tradition of saying it is the doctor against the patient, doctor and patient, forgive me. It is the doctor and patient together against the world. This is the history of medicine. It's imperfect in a lot of ways. Sometimes it doesn't do that, but that's the theory there. Public health has a very different perspective. And public health wasn't always called public health. Public health is more utilitarianism. But they realized utilitarianism didn't work, so they moved the name, they switched the name public health as a field. And public health says, how do we make Tatiana's health decisions? How do we make Josh's health decisions? Determination of the collective. How do we have votes on how Tatiana and Josh are supposed to behave with their health? This is insane. Your health is your health, and you need to put your foot down. Everyone watching who has any interest in their own freedom in any topic should have their red flags going, saying, hey, my health is my health. You don't get to impose upon my health. That's it. No matter what the topic is, a foot must be put down. Public health is their math is, if Granny is worth 1 util alive and Granny is worth 2 utils dead, then we know what has to happen to Granny. That's sick. There's nothing more than that behind public health. We need to avoid this at all costs. We have to talk about protecting ourselves from this corona communism.
Well, wait, hold on. Now it sounds like you're saying that these people don't have our best interests in mind. And I mean, how do we know that they really are looking at us like cattle, right? I mean, like, I guess, well, you could look at how they started assigning people. When they were playing with the death numbers, right? And they would say, okay, well, if you have a corona death, then you get more money. So that's one example. Like, go into that a little bit more. How do we know that this is corrupt?
We don't even have to say it's corrupt if we can at least say no one's health can be mandated. That's just a line too far. And I strongly advocate for people to take the simple step of doing the hard thing of never wearing a face mask again. I don't wear a face mask. I'm in super lockdown land, like one of the worst. And I never wear a face mask. And it's taken some effort.
You should be dead by now.
Oh, yeah. So
the ghost of Stevo.
Maybe that's who you're talking to, the ghost of Stevo. I strongly recommend, I fully believe that people who will wear the face mask will take the vaccine. People who will wear the face mask will do far more sinister things. They'll agree with far more sinister things and sit back and say, okay, you gave me the right reason. Are you a person of preference or are you a person of values? If you're a person of preference, you'll be able to say your whole life, oh, well, my value didn't mean very much because they gave me the right explanation for why I don't need that value, actually. If you're a person of values, you got to do your best right now to say, no, you're not making any more health decisions for me. That's for me to make and me alone. And that's how my liberty goes. That's how all liberty goes. Public health emerged in the 1870s, 1880s in England and on the East Coast of the US. And it was just another way to say it's a combination of collectivism with medicine, making it basically the opposite of medicine. It's a combination of Marxism with medicine, making it basically the opposite of medicine. Many in the field very tangentially focus on the medicine issue and very much focus on the issue of politics. You can get that just by reading, they're very public with it. You can get it by reading any of their communications with each other, any of their journals. Anyone with a public health degree to me is automatically like, whoa, you have some pretty bad politics guaranteed. And you're talking about saving Granny. You don't care about saving Granny. You care about a political agenda.
What do I say in this? Like, if I don't, I'm walking past, I see something that I want to get, and I don't have a mask on. I want to go to Lidl, which is a supermarket chain here, and need to get some bread. Generally, what my friend does, just before you answer that, is they just don't go to those places now, they go to their local bakery, and they don't really do much shopping anymore because they just can't be bothered with it all. But I still like to go to Lidl and do my shopping. I've got a little kid and stuff, and need a bunch of things, and also the organic store. And I just generally I'll wear it if it's like, if there's heaps of people there and I just can't be bothered for that moment. But if I try to just go in there and say, I'm just getting some groceries and that's it, I'm in and out, and it's so hard. But how do you deal with that situation without knowing the manager?
Yeah, convenience. In the year 2021, it's hard to say anything that is not convenient. But I want to, Josh, first of all, thank you for not wearing a mask. In all the situations you don't wear a mask. That is, you're sending messages to people. Your bravery is rippling out to others in ways you will never imagine. And step by step, person by person, this is going to be one. This is 38-member blue ribbon panels are not who decide when lockdown ends. One person at a time, people in their own lives decide, I'm not going to comply with the lockdown anymore. I'm not going to comply with the mask order anymore. And eventually, it doesn't matter what whoever's in authority says. It doesn't matter what a bureaucrat says. It doesn't matter what the guy in the white coat says at the press conference. None of it matters eventually when you in your life decide, I'm not going to do this anymore. It's not for me. What do I do at a Lidl? I go on my Maps app, I call the manager, and I have that conversation. That's what I do every time. And if it means I got to go 10 minutes out of my way to a place that I know is going to work, listen, my liberty, the liberty of the people around me, the inheritance of liberty given to me by a previous generation that is going to be handed to the next generation, impoverished, like we spent the whole trust fund, like a bunch of beggars and losers. Now we're going to give the next generation even less. What is that? I can't do that. I can't go to my grave, and the grave is much more close than I think for all of us. I can't go to my grave knowing that I took everything out of the trust fund and left nothing for the next generation. So to me, that is so important that I just won't go to that business that can't make that exception. And many businesses will make the exception. If you just have that conversation, they might let you in. Maybe they won't let you in that minute. They might run in and get it.
What's that conversation sound like?
They might run in and get it for you. They might let you in at 6 a.m. What's the conversation sound like? Hi, my name's Allan. I see you guys have a mask order. I'm unable to wear a mask safely, unfortunately. I'd like to come by about 2 p.m. or I'm outside your store. What can you do for me? And just let them start talking and listen.
All right. So we know how to handle it in the store. We're coming up on the end of the show. There's one last question that I want to ask you. What about people you actually care about, right? People in the store, whatever, who cares what they think, whatever, right? You try and interact with them civilly, and then you go on your merry way. What if it's a family member that says, you can't be around my children unless you're wearing a mask, but you feel that that is child abuse to the children to expose them without, I think that is a real issue personally. And also, I think that if you, I don't think that the person who likes the mask is the default winner in the morality contest. I don't think that they're the default winner in the health contest, but I'm dealing with somebody who doesn't care about my facts that I'm giving them. They're only in a fear mode. And because they're afraid, their fear triumphs my interest in my own health. Now, again, easy to handle in the store, but what about if it's a family or a friend, right? They're like, oh, I can't, do you start ending friendships? Because I'm not so sure that this whole thing is going to end so quickly. I hope it does. But what is the method that you would suggest for that kind of an interaction?
We live in an era of tacit approval, and that means we're supposed to do this. We're supposed to do this all day. We're supposed to nod. No matter what anyone's saying, we're supposed to nod. And they might be telling the craziest lie, and we don't even think about it. We just nod. Or we thumbs up on social media, and and we can't do that. If you care about the truth, you can't do that. And if life is a pursuit of the truth for you, if that's part of the importance of life for you, then you can't be doing this. You can't give anyone your tacit approval. You have to be ready to say, well, could you explain that to me a little bit more? And if they haven't explained it sufficiently, how did you come to that conclusion? If they haven't explained it sufficiently, you have to be able to say, what you just said wasn't very convincing to me. And you can't be around lies where you're giving your tacit approval. You can't even let that lie sit out there in the air for everyone to hear. This is a great ill of our era. People blame the public health people. People blame the oppressive tyrants. They'll say, oh, those liberals, oh, those socialists. It's not those people's fault. It's not always your oppressor's fault that you're so oppressible. There's no one ever said Sodom and Gomorrah is going to run to the rescue. New York and Los Angeles are not going to run to the rescue. So there's people in life who get it, and they have to be leaders. They have to be moral backstops to say, enough is enough. I'm not going to be around this. I'm going to call out your lie. And wearing the face mask is tacit approval of a lie. When you wear that face mask, you're telling a lie to the whole world, and you're telling the whole world you expect them to tell the same lie. And that's real bad of you to do. Do you end friendships? I just wouldn't go around someone who demands I wear a face mask. We'd have conversations, that would be it. And you'd imagine, you would be surprised how quickly, if you're looking for them, how quickly you find people who are as dedicated to the truth as you.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I haven't seen my niece and nephew in almost a year, and I'm constantly struggling with that. But I refuse. I don't want to see them with the mask. I think it's evil. I want to hug them like normal little humans and treat them like I'm sorry. I'm not afraid of the disease. I don't think the people around them have the right to think about not letting your children interact with people unless they're like on lock and key and they're not only in masks, but very limited human contact. That's what is so frustrating, is that people don't think, well, maybe it's not so good for my kid to not see people for a year or two. Maybe it's not so good to teach my child to wash their hands 50 billion times a day and to be afraid of diseases. Like, it's really an experiment being carried out in certain ways psychologically on people, and I am not a fan. And I'm not so keen to pretend that I don't think that anymore. This is a very, very convenient situation if you want to take power, and I'm not complying. And to me, the mask is the hill. Maybe if I'm being tortured, fine, I'll wear the mask. But I'm being tortured now. Forget this noise. If you don't push back right now, you're never going to get, you know what I mean? Then they're just going to keep taking and taking and taking. This is one small thing.
Yeah, one thing that really stands out for me is the schools. These poor children that get this temperature gun pointed at their forehead, their third eye. Boom. Oh yeah, you can pass. And then parents, you're not allowed to go in. You're not allowed to kiss. Take the jacket off your kid and put the school bag and kiss them goodbye. No, you have to stay here. Kid goes in. Ridiculous, like an absolute farce. So I just really wonder what psychologically is going to happen to the next generation. If they're going to have this full-on OCD, wash their hands a million times. The goddamn Apple Watch has now got a thing that tells you 20 seconds. Oh, 20 seconds go. It's insane. There's nothing wrong with the normal stuff of when I did this before COVID. I come home, I'd give my hands a wash, and that was it. It was just part of life. And now it seems this insanity. But the school thing is really scary, and I feel really horrible for the parents that have to deal with that.
There's Gandhi's quote is saying, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." And this is just kind of our kids. We have to do our best for the people who we have the ability to do the best for. We have to do the best for ourselves. We're the only ones we can really change. The rest of society, we kind of have to say, well, I give you permission to do what you want to do. That's part of liberty. And it's very frustrating. I think if we can focus the mirror on ourselves as much as possible, encourage others to do the same, I think it's great. And face masks are one lesson. It starts with face masks. It talks about liberty in so many other ways. And I want to encourage your readers, your viewers who don't think a face mask works for them to please stop wearing their face mask in all situations immediately. If you don't know how, my book helps you do that. If you know how, really what you just have to do, is never wear a face mask again. Just decide that's the standard of life I have. I'm never wearing it again. Have calm conversations with people. Managers, avoid the checkpoint. Know your local face mask order. You do those things, 95% of the time, you're not going to have any trouble. The book goes into the other 5%, but you really don't need it in a lot of ways. Just set yourself at a higher standard. Say you want better for yourself and your family.
I like you. I want to vote for you for something, except that voting is stupid. Okay, and also rigged. So as we learned last week with Jason Rink's episode, I don't know if anybody saw that. Have you heard the Stop the Steal movie he's working on? Oh, wait, I'm not allowed to say that because Big Brother will get really mad and chop us off the air. We don't want that. Everybody, please share this show. Just like with all the other content online, it's being censored. I think that everybody should check out this book. Maybe make it into a present for someone you love for Valentine's Day. Be like, I'm going to give you the gift of freedom from fear, and help them kind of live that way. Allan Stevo, thank you so much for joining us on the Tatiana Show. I hope I see you sometime soon in person, maskless, that gorgeous face of yours. Josh, looking cool. I got to talk to you. We got to talk a little bit about getting some Bitcoin into Vaultoro and silver. Maybe on an upcoming episode, let's talk to people about diversifying their holdings and maybe do a little screen share action of that because that might be fun. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Tatiana Show. And if you want the softer side of crypto, check out proofoflovecast.com where we talk about sex, love, and crypto. All right, bye. See ya.
What's the point of all this technology without a little love in our lives? Our hosts, Tatiana Moroz, Dr. Stephanie Murphy, and Lauren Kasovitz, have come together to bring you Proof of Love. Go to proofoflovecast.com. The Tatiana Show has been brought to you by CryptoMediaHub.com, a boutique marketing and PR agency for Bitcoin and beyond. Hey there, it's time for the show, the Tatiana Show, where you make friends and talk life and crypto. We gotta think and reflect and use lots of intellect with our hearts when we work together. I know that it can be so hard out there, looking all around and saying that life ain't fair. So that is why we will fight and stay up late at night, listening to the Tatiana Show. Thank you for listening to the Tatiana Show. Please follow us on Twitter at Queen Tatiana or on Facebook and Instagram at Tatiana Moroz Music. More episodes can be found at thetatianashow.com, and make sure you leave a review on iTunes and tell your friends. You are listening to The Tatiana Show. This show may contain adult content, language, and humor and is intended for mature audiences. If that's not you, please stop listening. Nothing you hear on The Tatiana Show is intended as financial advice, legal advice, or really anything other than entertainment. Take everything you hear with a grain of salt. Oh, and if you're listening to us on an affiliate network, the ideas and views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of the network that you're listening on or of any sponsors or any affiliate products you may hear about on this show.